Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lender who helps it grow. Live from Nashville, Memphis. Where are you? I know you're Tennessee.
I'm in Nashville at the Moxie Hotel downtown Nashville, and
Very nice. Very nice.
just had an opportunity to participate in the Music City Lenders Conference.
I'm going to get to that in a second. Delaney, welcome. Delaney's going to talk about Fraud Friday, and we got some stuff in there. But let's start with you. What happened at the Music
Well,
City
of course,
that affects us? How's that?
well, I think it was a great opportunity to mingle with some of the folks that watched the show. So any of you that we spent some time together at the conference, hi, it's good to see you again. Also a great time to get updated on some of the things that are going to happen in SBA lending. Eddie Ledford, the deputy of Oakram, was here, gave a great presentation. You know, guys, I've been telling you this for several months. Make sure and dust off your servicing and liquidation hat and improve those skills. And Eddie in his presentation said exactly the same thing. So it's a great time to jump in and learn more about servicing and liquidation. The other thing, of course, we had a headquarters presentation, and we got to Q&A, Bob and Delaney, and guess what I asked? When is the SOP going to be out? And I also asked the question, will it have a letter, a number? What's the 5010 going to have? And the answer was, we should see the initial version of the SOP right after the end of SBA's fiscal year. So somewhere in the month of October, most likely. And the SOP, and it could change between now and then, but it was said it's going to be the 5010-6A. which a number and a letter. So a couple of things that they are, you know, the DREG Act, they clarified some things that were in the DREG Act that we talked about recently. And the other thing they talked about is we're going to see increase in the amount of unsecured lending amount on SBA 7A loan. They just don't know exactly. They're between now and then, they're trying to iron out the amount. So it's not going to be 25 anymore. It's going to increase. It could be 40. It could be 50.
What do you think?
I'm thinking 50. But that is one thing. The other thing is they're talking about fee relief on smaller loans on the lender side to encourage lenders to make more small SBA loans. So those are some of the things. It's a great conference. Certainly last night was a lot of fun. I did not stay out as late as many of my friends, but it was a fun conference, a lot of good information. I conducted a training on servicing and liquidation, and then I conducted a training on building your SBA lending department.
Very good. How many people attended?
It's kind of hard, Bob. I'm going to guess 200.
And was head office, were they there in person or via?
We did have, like I said, Eddie Ledford was here in person and gave a great presentation on, it was like an Oakram roundtable. And it was a tremendous presentation. I really enjoyed it. There were some Tennessee district office staff here. The rest of the headquarters staff was virtual.
What was the attitude of the attendees in terms of getting out of the office? I guess what I'm saying, put it in context, was, go ahead, put it in context.
I think everybody, I brought 2 or 3 of my team members here, thanks to Chris and Michael. But everybody was glad to get out to get some training, to socialize. I mean, everybody was very excited. If you saw, it reminds me of conferences, 5 years ago.
Okay.
A lot of fun, a lot of interaction between SBA participant lenders. I had 2 of my young team members who've never been to a conference, and I said, the greatest thing you're going to do here is A, hear from SBA leadership, but B, you're going to meet other people who do exactly what you do. and you can sit and tell stories and share ideas and benefit from that.
Very good. Very good. Well, that's a very nice recap. Thank you very much for that. It'll be interesting on numbers of just thinking ahead. So we have a 50-10-6. I don't know what we're going to do when we go to a 50-10-7A.
Now, here's one thing that was said, Bob. The 50-10-6A, once the final, it's going to potentially be released as that, and they may finalize some things and make it the 50-10-7. So we may see a release and then a second release second or third quarter of 2023.
What about servicing and liquidation SOP updates?
Everyone, I asked Eddie the question about a new servicing SOP, and we had a conversation, and, you know, everybody believes there will be a new one come out. I haven't heard a date. There have not been huge changes in the servicing and liquidation area, but it's hard to believe that we've had an SOP for 7 years.
Yeah, and my comment is, what about PPP servicing and liquidation? Is that going to get the is that going to be just simply wrapped in? What do you?
No, I don't think it's going to be in the 50-57. I had this conversation 2 or 3 times. SBA just wants PPP to end.
Well,
so do I. Somebody from headquarters said PPP's over. I'm like, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
But anyway, I don't think there'll be anything about servicing PPP in the SOP.
Great. Hey, poll question. Which of the following are not a top 5 reason for a guaranteed denial? Where this came from is from SBA's quarterly Connect call. Be sure and take advantage of that. They do a separate one for 504 and 7A. There's a lot of good information there. They bring in all of the their staff. And Lance, let's see, what are the following that not top 5 reason? Ineligible business acquisition loans, failure to document equity injection, 6%, very good. That is a big reason.
Yes.
Failure to lien collateral properly, that is a reason, and unauthorized use of proceeds. So for those of you who said ineligible business acquisition loans, you are correct.
Yes. When you look at this list, it's kind of Bob always asks these trick questions. Well, obviously, an ineligible loan is going to be a denial. Not documenting equity injection properly is going to be a denial. Now, a failure to get proper lien position might be a repair. And unauthorized use of proceeds also most likely will end up being a repair.
But they had in their 5, they had lien collateral, failure to properly put the proper liens on that. They had that as a reason for guaranteed denial. And the other 2, Lance, up your what you've been talking about, failure to service and liquidate it accurately.
Yeah, 1 and 2 are definite denials. C and D are denial/repair.
And our second poll question, what is the most common equity injection failure?
Yeah, so take a left here, go to the street road, go to second.
This is a trick question. We don't know, but Lance, because they didn't break it out for us, so all the answers are correct. But Lance, if you had to pick one, which one would you pick?
I would go with failure to document the source of the cash properly, but failure to document gift letters also would be one. Failure to document non-cash injections. Now, failure to monitor working capital disbursements, and it's kind of interesting, Bob, because that is not a reason for equity injection failure. But one thing about equity injection, you got to make sure the equity injection goes in before the disbursements go out.
That's what I was getting at. Well, we want to make sure that the loan proceeds are not being used to satisfy equity injection. Right. And that's what that is for. Let's see. Do we have one more poll question, Joseph? Or?
Oh, that's it. Just the 2.
I thought we had Mr. Brady.
Oh, Tom Brady. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Delaney. Your turn. This has been what is Mr. Brady, our Hall of Fame quarterback for Tampa?
I'm the wrong person to ask.
He's with Tampa.
I'm not going to ask you what team he plays for, Delaney. I will ask you, why is he
So back in 2020, he received an almost $1 million PPP loan for his sports performance and nutrition company. And this ended up sparking some outrage. There was actually a petition that had, I want to say, about 190,000 signatures that wanted him to pay back his loan. While there was some more unrest, I guess, with this situation when recently in July, his loan was forgiven in full. There has been a lot of talk on social media, and people are saying this loan should not have been forgiven and he should have paid the money.
Now, I have
Lance,
strong
what would you have
feelings
done?
about this.
What would you have done, Father Lance?
So first of all, the people that sent the letter obviously are not football fans. I mean, Tom Brady is the GOAT. But, guys, when PPP first released, there were a lot of people that got criticized for getting loans, but they were merely following the rules. And I'm sure Tom Brady's company properly submitted an application for a PPP loan. Same thing on forgiveness. You know, sometimes SBA harasses, I'm sorry, I'm not going to use that word. Sometimes SBA does a partial approval of forgiveness. My take on forgiveness is if you got a PPP loan and if you look at the IFR, it supports it, and you spent the proceeds on payroll and kept people employed, it should be forgiven. So I don't think people should question the fact that Tom Brady's company got forgiven on the PPP loan as long as he spent it on payroll and kept those people employed.
Delaney, he did not pocket the cash, as Lance said. Where did the money go?
I was looking at the forgiveness. I don't know what you call it, but I know that information is available, and it said that 100% of it went to employees and payroll.
So
And
which
Bob,
did that go to Mr. Brady? Go ahead, Lance.
we could show a picture of Tom Brady's house, but Tom Brady makes this much in a game. So
More than that.
and Tom's got a gigantic house, I'm sure, and a beautiful, expensive car, but it wasn't PPP loan proceeds.
No, yes. And he's not driving around with the PPP loan license plate on his.
No, absolutely not. But again, you cannot fault somebody for getting a set of rules, following a set of rules. It's certainly not his fault. And some of the criticisms early on in PPP when companies followed the rules, got loans, and just because they're a well-known public figure like Tom, it's hard for me to see them criticizing Tom. But I love football. Full disclosure.
First NBC Bank, Delaney, they are out of, tell us about it. Where are they out of?
Oh boy, you always test me on questions I should know but don't seem to remember. I want to say it's Louisiana or Florida or somewhere in this southeast region. But this is a continuation of last week's story. We talked about Mr. Callaway. He was the former executive vice president who pled guilty. I recently found an article that stated he is now going to cooperate and be a witness for the prosecution during this trial.
The banker
There's
is?
still I'm sorry?
The banker is going to be the witness. Interesting. Normally the prosecutors love to go for the, what I call the a criminal to turn against the banker. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes, so this is some of his fellow co-workers. Ashton Ryan was the founder, president, CEO, and chairman of the board at First NBC Bank at various points in his career. And William Burnell was the chief credit officer. So I decided to focus on them now. They have not pled guilty. There's a trial that's going to start in January of next year. But there's quite a few different interesting loan situations. In one of these cases, Ryan had a cheat sheet for a specific borrower, listing out the amount of loan proceeds that were necessary to cover loan payments and overdrafts so that he did not show up at the end of the month report and the board would not be alerted. In the same situation, there was a guarantor who was allegedly a little uneasy about signing on these loans, and they ended up informing bank employees to process the loan despite never receiving a signature from this guarantor. In another case, there was a borrower who had, Ryan and Burnell had already been alerted that he had fraudulent activity, and they failed to report it to the board. And similarly, they continued approving almost $6 million in new loans, renewals with increases, and consolidated loans. In a third situation, there was another borrower Ryan had a relationship with, allegedly. He was supposed to be borrowing personally from this borrower. He did not want the borrower to disclose a relationship to the bank or the FDIC as you're supposed to. And the FDIC ended up discovering this relationship to which he lied about.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, of course.
Since you guys don't know the state, maybe these guys should have a bowl of gumbo and discuss it. Now do you know where it's at?
I think we could. I was going to say
It's New Orleans.
but Nolans. Lance, we talk about this over and over and over. Why? Why and just why? Well, why does this happen?
I don't know because the banking industry has federal regulators, state regulators. Every document's electronic. It's like the story we had a few weeks back where somebody set fire to documents on a boardroom table. I'm just like, there's an electronic folder on the computer right outside the boardroom. So, I mean, some of the actions make very little sense to me, and it's better to be an honest player in this industry and keep your career than to have some short-term gain and lose the job.
I think what the problem is, Delaney, and you've alluded to this others, and this was actually the defense of the lady who lit the match, is she was caught up in this and she was intimidated by other people. And I think when you have the bank president say, do this, you're intimidated, and you have to understand it could be to your personal detriment, Delaney. See, when I say Delaney and a pause, that's where you get to talk more.
I apologize.
See, I set you up for that. So you give us your wisdom.
It went completely over my head this time. I don't know what was going on in their personal lives, and I'll be interested to hear the trial, especially with Mr. Calloway now being a witness for the prosecution instead of a defendant. Maybe we'll get a little more insight into this. But.
Yeah, he's turning against his co-conspirators. That's what
It sounds like Mr. Calloway got told, you're going to go to jail for a long time unless you help us on these other
you
things.
sent your friends down the river first. Hey, Lance, what are you talking about next Wednesday?
Well, we're going to talk about the guaranteed purchase process, and my good friend Eddie Ledford from Oakland yesterday in a roundtable said all SBA lenders need to be paying attention to servicing, special servicing, and liquidation process. So we're going to talk about how to avoid guarantee repairs and denials next Wednesday. Very important topic. And then the following week, Bob, we're going to cover equity injection.
Yes, and then we're going to follow up with a new niche, California Small Business Loan Disclosure Statements. I've been the DFPI, Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. I've been following this, and that's going to be, even though you're not in California, it's going to be affecting all of us. And we just put up on Amazon the regulations for that. If you want to take advantage of that, it's on Amazon. Click on it, and that's the name of it. It's under Coleman Publishing. Anyway. Thank you all for joining us. Lance, thank you very much for your update. Delaney, good reporting. Thank you. Good job. We'll hold over the mayoral candidate for next week. That's a fascinating story as well. Thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great week.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you for joining us today for today's episode. If you like today's content, hit that subscribe button to subscribe to our channel and click that bell icon to get notified about our latest videos. Thank you again for joining us today and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Catch you next time.